Imagine 1980. The music industry is a colossal titan, unshakable, built on three pillars: monolithic record labels, powerful radio waves, and the nascent MTV, a mere year away from its explosive debut. It's a world where music consumption is largely a passive experience, dictated by broadcasters and the tangible allure of vinyl and cassette sales. The very idea of computers, these clunky Apple IIs and Commodore PETs, machines for spreadsheets, games, or niche programming, becoming central to music creation or distribution? Simply unimaginable. But what if a radical technological tremor had shaken this world to its core? What if a forgotten innovation, a truly user-friendly, high-fidelity digital music format had burst onto the scene in 1980? Our point of divergence? A hidden research project from the 1970s, perhaps spurred by desperate military communication needs or the singular vision of a reclusive genius, suddenly perfects a miraculously efficient, high-fidelity digital audio compression format. More astonishingly, the hardware to play these files, cheap and robust digital audio players, becomes commercially viable right then. Picture this: a well-funded tech giant, ravenous to dominate the nascent personal computing market, embraces this format, weaving it seamlessly into their early home computers. No more vinyl static, no more tape hiss, just perfect, portable, digital sound. The future of music, arriving decades ahead of schedule. The immediate impact on the music industry wouldn't just be cataclysmic, it would be an apocalyptic event for the old guard. Record labels, still clinging to their vinyl presses and cassette duplicator machines, would face an existential abyss. Their entire distribution model, the very lifeblood of their empire, from manufacturing plants churning out millions of LPs to intricate networks of distributors and thousands of record stores, would be annihilated overnight. This wasn't a slow decline. It was a sudden, violent implosion, ripping through the very fabric of music commerce. Imagine the sheer panic gripping the boardrooms of CBS Records, Warner Music, and EMI. Their carefully constructed edifice of manufacturing, shipping, and retail relationships, built over decades, would crumble into dust. Tower Records, a temple of vinyl, would find its aisles emptied, its business model rendered obsolete within months. This would lead to mass bankruptcies among independent distributors and retailers, creating a widespread economic downturn in cities heavily reliant on the music industry. The record company executives, once untouchable titans, would face desperate choices: how to fight back against an invisible, endlessly replicable enemy. Would they try to crush this digital hydra with a barrage of lawsuits attempting to ban the very technology? Or would they frantically try to acquire the very tech companies that birthed this new beast, much like a desperate predator trying to swallow its own destruction, hoping to control the future by buying out its disruptor? And piracy? A rudimentary concept in 1980, mostly confined to tape-to-tape dubbing with noticeable quality loss. But in this alternate timeline, it would become an instant, rampant wildfire. Digital files, copied and shared with perfect fidelity at the speed of a floppy disk drive, would ignite a global sharing frenzy. Suddenly, the legal battles over digital rights, which we witnessed explode in the late 90s with Napster, would rip through the early 80s, tearing the industry apart long before anyone was remotely ready for such a paradigm shift. There were no established legal precedents, no digital rights management, DRM technologies, and certainly no global internet infrastructure to track illicit sharing. It would be a wild west of intellectual property, with legal definitions and enforcement lagging years behind technological reality. The ensuing chaos would lead to years of legal ambiguity, stifling investment, and leaving artists in limbo. Think of the artists. How would the glittering career of a superstar like Michael Jackson, poised for Thriller's global domination, shift in this landscape? His meticulously crafted albums, designed for vinyl, would face instant digital replication. Would he become one of the first digital titans, selling directly to fans through proprietary computer networks? Or would his label's collapse leave him adrift, struggling to find new pathways to his audience? This scenario forces artists to become entrepreneurs overnight. For established acts, the transition would be painful. Many might try to tour relentlessly to compensate for lost record sales, burning out quickly. But for emerging artists, especially those outside the mainstream, this could be an unexpected boon. What about a raw punk band struggling to get noticed, or an emerging hip-hop artist crafting beats in their bedroom? They could become digital rebels, bypassing labels entirely. They'd share their raw tracks through early online forums, bulletin board systems, BBSs, or even direct computer-to-computer transfers, forging direct, unprecedented connections with a hungry, technologically savvy audience. This would completely reshape the very definition of independent music, empowering a new generation of DIY artists. This disruption wouldn't just change careers, it would forge new destinies and leave countless others in ruins, creating a vast disparity between those who adapted and those who clung to obsolete models. New compensation models would emerge out of sheer necessity in a chaotic, experimental fashion. Imagine artists adopting rudimentary digital tip jars on early computer networks, hoping fans would voluntarily pay for their music. Early forms of crowdfunding might arise, where artists solicit investments from fans to record new material. Perhaps pioneering software companies would partner directly with artists, offering them a larger share of revenue in exchange for exclusivity. The entire concept of music ownership would be reevaluated, leading to intense debates that would span decades, foreshadowing the streaming wars of the 21st century. Technologically, this would be a hyper-acceleration across multiple fronts. Suddenly, home computers aren't just for spreadsheets and rudimentary games, they're the ultimate music machines. This unforeseen demand for digital audio playback and massive storage would catapult the development of greater storage capacity, faster processors, and truly intuitive user interfaces, pushing progress forward by decades. Early computers, with their limited memory and slow processors, would immediately hit bottlenecks. This would drive frantic innovation in hard drive technology. Imagine the race to produce smaller, cheaper, and higher capacity hard drives that could hold hundreds, then thousands of digital songs. This demand would accelerate miniaturization and affordability, making computers truly personal media hubs years ahead of schedule. We might even see the emergence of early proprietary digital music cartridges or advanced floppy disk formats specifically designed for high-fidelity audio, becoming the dominant physical medium for exchange before network speeds caught up. The desire to share music would also force breakthroughs in home networking protocols. Forget rudimentary Ethernet. Imagine a rapid evolution of serial port connections into faster, more robust local area networks, LANs, for music sharing within homes or between friends in close proximity. This could even spark the early concept of digital home servers, dedicated to media storage and streaming across a household. Furthermore, the insatiable appetite for shared digital music would inevitably fast-track the development of widespread internet connectivity. Imagine millions of people clamoring for faster, more efficient ways to share these pristine digital music files across cities and continents. This demand could have spurred the early development of sophisticated dial-up networks, perhaps even a precursor to the World Wide Web, designed primarily for peer-to-peer file sharing long before Tim Berners-Lee conceived of HTML. This early music-driven networking could have fundamentally altered the Internet's initial growth and architecture, making it a consumer-driven phenomenon from its very inception. Software and user interface innovation would also be paramount. Command-line interfaces simply wouldn't cut it for managing thousands of songs. This would force a rapid evolution in operating systems and software design, pushing for graphical user interfaces, GUIs, and intuitive file management systems specifically tailored for media. Think of early playlist creators, digital DJ software, or primitive music library organizers appearing on Apple IIs or Commodores. making complex digital file management accessible to the average music lover. This would accelerate the personal computing revolution far beyond its initial business and gaming focus. The way people consumed music would be utterly transformed, but so too would broader culture, from social interactions to the very sound of the decade. Music would become far more personalized and portable long before the iPod became a distant glimmer in Apple's eye. Imagine teenagers walking around with bulky, battery-powered digital players connected to their home computers, loaded with hundreds of tracks, redefining what personal listening meant. Mixtapes wouldn't just evolve, they'd be replaced by effortlessly shared digital playlists, curated and swapped among friends with unprecedented ease. This would elevate the role of the individual as a curator and tastemaker. The hallowed concept of the album, a complete artistic statement, might diminish at an astonishing pace, giving way to individual tracks or meticulously curated personal compilations, ushering in the era of the single-track obsession much earlier. Music discovery would undergo a radical paradigm shift. While radio would still play a crucial role in breaking hits, dedicated digital music communities and early online forums could become the new, powerful arbiters of taste, fostering entirely new subcultures around digital music sharing. These digital enclaves, built on shared sonic preferences, would bypass traditional gatekeepers and allow niche genres to flourish in ways previously impossible. We'd see the rise of bedroom producers and digital DJs who gained fame solely within these online communities, creating a more fragmented but intensely dedicated music landscape. This would accelerate the shift from mass culture to niche interests, impacting everything from fashion to slang. And the very sound of the 1980s? While synthesizers and electronic music were already on the rise, the perfection of digital audio would unleash musicians and producers to experiment even more radically. Imagine a world where sampling was no longer a laborious, low-fidelity process, but an instantaneous, pristine tool. Digital manipulation, effects, and synthesis would be instantly available, unconstrained by the limitations of analog recording. This could have led to even more experimental, avant-garde pop music. Early hip-hop, for instance, could have developed with far more complex and layered samples, pushing its sonic boundaries years ahead of its time. Pop music, rock, and other genres would all evolve on this new, shimmering digital canvas, pushing sonic boundaries beyond our wildest imagination and perhaps creating genres we can't even conceive of in our current timeline, as digital perfection became the new ideal. Yet, this alternate history isn't without its deep shadows. The music industry's initial dramatic collapse could trigger a lost decade for certain artists and genres. As traditional revenue streams vanish into thin air and new, viable ones struggle to coalesce, many talented musicians might simply give up their craft. Without the financial backing of labels, promotion, and tours, numerous artists, especially those not at the very top tier, would struggle immensely to make a living. This could indeed choke off creativity for a time, pushing aspiring musicians into more stable, less fulfilling paths, leaving countless potential masterpieces unwritten and unheard. The economic hardship for artists would be immense and prolonged. The powerful gatekeepers like radio stations might diminish too rapidly, potentially leading to a more fragmented and perhaps less cohesive pop culture landscape. While decentralization can foster diversity, it can also make it harder for truly unifying cultural movements to emerge, or for certain artists to achieve widespread household recognition. The early, unchecked spread of piracy could make it incredibly difficult for artists to earn a living, setting a precedent that the value of recorded music is effectively zero. A battle the industry still fights today, but one that would have started much earlier and with far less preparation. This could lead to a generation of artists struggling to sustain themselves, impacting the overall quality and output of music for a significant period. This what-if world isn't just about music. It's a window into an entirely different trajectory for technology, culture, and even global politics. The very nature of information control would be challenged. If early digital networking was primarily driven by the insatiable human desire for music sharing, Could this have inadvertently influenced information flow across the Iron Curtain? Imagine teenagers in East Berlin or Prague, desperate for the latest Western pop or punk, discovering ways to connect to these digital music BBSs in the West. While state control over information was tight, these decentralized peer-to-peer music networks could become unwitting conduits for other forms of forbidden information. A digital music file might contain hidden text files, subversive messages, or uncensored news alongside the music. Small illicit networks of computer enthusiasts, ostensibly sharing music, could inadvertently become crucial channels for political dissidents or everyday citizens seeking an unfiltered view of the world. This subtle erosion of state control, driven by shared cultural desire, could have had unforeseen and profound long-term impacts on the Cold War, perhaps accelerating societal shifts within the Soviet bloc in ways entirely unforeseen by intelligence agencies on either side. A digital breeze, carrying pop songs and forbidden ideas, could begin to chip away at walls built of concrete and ideology. Furthermore, the rapid need for digital literacy would become undeniable. The general public, driven by their love for music, would be forced to interact with personal computers, learn file management, and understand basic networking concepts years before it became a necessity for professional life. This widespread adoption would accelerate computer education in schools and homes, creating a more tech-savvy populace much earlier. However, it would also exacerbate an early digital divide between those with access to the technology and those without, deepening existing socioeconomic inequalities. The implications for music education and theory would also be profound. If digital tools became central to music creation so early, how would this affect how music is taught and understood? Would specialized digital conservatories emerge, focusing on electronic composition, sampling, and computer-aided arrangement? Would traditional music theory adapt to analyze digitally constructed sounds, or would entirely new theoretical frameworks evolve? This democratization of music creation, driven by cheap digital tools, would allow countless individuals without formal training or expensive instruments to experiment with sound, leading to an explosion of unique, untrained musical voices and potentially challenging traditional notions of musical talent and craftsmanship. And what about the transformation of live music? With less reliance on major labels to fund extensive tours, a new, more decentralized live music circuit might emerge. Small, independent venues could flourish, and perhaps even early forms of digital performance or interactive online concerts would become a niche phenomenon, broadcast over nascent networks. The aesthetics of the live show would also shift. Artists might push for perfectly replicated studio sounds live, or conversely use the ease of digital manipulation for more experimental, improvisational performances using real-time digital effects. Could early digital players allow for unique fan interactions at concerts, like real-time voting for set lists or immediate digital distribution of live recordings post-show? Finally, the ripple effect would extend to other media. Film soundtracks would benefit immensely from pristine digital audio and advanced sampling, allowing for more intricate and immersive sound design in 80s cinema. Would films like Blade Runner or Tron push sonic boundaries even further, creating even more iconic and complex soundscapes? Television and advertising would also adapt, utilizing more complex, digitally produced jingles and background music, leading to more dynamic and sophisticated soundtracks. The initial purpose of MTV, focused on music videos for promotion, might even evolve differently. If music could be instantly accessed digitally, would the music video as a promotional tool lose some of its initial urgency? Or would MTV adapt by becoming a platform for visually stunning digital art, synchronized with music, pushing creative boundaries even further, perhaps emphasizing visual experimentation over pure song promotion? The unexpected acceleration of consumer electronics would be another major ripple. Beyond computers, the demand for portable digital music would spawn an entirely new segment of consumer electronics. Forget the Walkman. Imagine clunky, power-hungry, yet revolutionary portable digital audio players. These early DAPs would be the size of small bricks, perhaps with tiny monochrome screens, relying on expensive swappable memory cartridges, holding only a handful of songs initially. Companies like Sony, Panasonic, and even new tech startups would race to dominate this nascent market, driving rapid innovation in miniaturization and power efficiency. This would create a new battleground for tech supremacy, moving beyond home consoles and personal computers. The insatiable desire for portable digital music would also put immense pressure on battery technology and miniaturization efforts decades earlier than in our timeline. Companies would invest heavily in developing more efficient and smaller batteries, potentially accelerating breakthroughs in lithium-ion or other advanced battery chemistries. This could have trickle-down effects on everything from early cell phones to portable computing devices. The car stereo market, dominated by cassette decks, would face a seismic shift. Imagine the early adoption of digital music players integrated into car dashboards, replacing cassette decks, becoming the ultimate status symbol of technological prowess. This would drive demand for durable, high-capacity automotive storage solutions and sophisticated in-car digital audio systems, turning car interiors into personalized listening environments years ahead of schedule. Regulatory minefields and global discord would be inevitable. The chaos unleashed by early digital music would force governments to react, likely clumsily and reactively at first, setting precedents for decades to come. Legislative bodies across the world, completely unprepared for the speed of digital copying, would scramble to draft new laws. Imagine the debates in the US Congress or European parliaments over what constitutes fair use for digital files. Would they attempt to impose taxes on blank digital storage media or mandate copy protection technologies in hardware and software? These early, often ill-conceived laws would set a complex and fragmented legal landscape. Different countries would adopt wildly divergent approaches to digital music regulation. Some might embrace open standards, fostering innovation, while others might impose strict controls or even try to ban the technology outright, leading to a fragmented global market. This lack of international harmonization would make cross-border piracy even harder to control, fueling a black market for digital music that transcends national boundaries. Smuggling digital music cartridges might become a real thing. As traditional music revenue models crumbled, public broadcasters, traditionally funded by taxes or licenses, might be forced to redefine their role. Would they step in to champion struggling artists, perhaps acting as digital archives or even primary distributors for cultural preservation? Or would they themselves be pressured to adopt commercial models to survive, further blurring the lines between public service and commercial enterprise? This could dramatically alter the landscape of non-commercial media. The subtle impact on broader culture would be fascinating. The personalized nature of digital music could manifest in fashion. Would music fans curate their wardrobes to reflect their ultra-specific digital playlists, creating micro-trends tied to niche digital music communities? This could lead to an even faster cycling of fashion trends and the emergence of highly specialized subculture aesthetics driven by digital music access. The very act of music consumption would become more solitary, yet also more deeply personal. While communal experiences of shared radio hits or album listening sessions might diminish, the individual's ability to curate a vast, bespoke soundtrack for their life would become commonplace decades earlier. This could lead to an earlier exploration of the psychological effects of constant personalized background music, influencing mood, focus, and social interaction in new, unstudied ways. Would it make people more isolated in their own sonic bubbles, or would shared playlists become a new form of social currency, fostering connections based on intricate musical tastes? The paradox of choice would hit music consumers much sooner, forcing early navigation tools and curation algorithms to emerge to help people find new music in an ocean of digital files. The digital music revolution would not only impact consumption, but fundamentally reshape how music is created and performed. The traditional role of the recording studio, once a sacred and expensive space, would be challenged. With powerful digital audio workstations, DAWs, appearing on home computers years earlier, the era of the bedroom producer would truly begin. Artists could record, mix, and master professional quality tracks from their homes, bypassing costly studio time and engineers. This democratization of production tools would lead to an explosion of experimental and niche genres, as creators were no longer limited by financial or geographic barriers. The line between amateur and professional would blur, forcing the established music industry to reckon with an entirely new ecosystem of independent creators. Live performance would also undergo a radical transformation. While traditional instruments would persist, the early adoption of digital audio processing and sequencing would give rise to new forms of live electronic music. Imagine artists on stage using early computers as instruments, manipulating sounds in real time, or triggering complex samples and synthesized textures. Computerized lighting rigs and stage effects, synchronized with digital music, could become standard much sooner, leading to more visually spectacular and technologically integrated concerts. The very definition of a band might expand to include performers who interact primarily with software and hardware. The ease of digitally recording live shows with pristine quality would also lead to an explosion of bootlegs and official live albums being distributed directly to fans almost instantaneously after a concert, creating a new revenue stream and a more immediate connection between artists and their audience. In this what-if world, the digital revolution isn't ignited by the internet as a research project, it's ignited by music. It's a world where the future of entertainment isn't shaped by physical media, but by bits and bytes hurtling humanity into the digital age of content consumption far ahead of its time. This single innovation, a forgotten compression format, could have fundamentally reshaped not just the music industry, but the entire trajectory of personal computing, networking, and digital culture, leading to a truly fascinating yet turbulent alternate reality. It leaves us with a compelling question. Would this early digital music revolution have been a blessing for consumers and artists, opening new frontiers of creativity and access, or would it have plunged the music industry into an even deeper, more chaotic crisis, leaving a trail of shattered dreams and a generation of struggling artists in its wake?